Good evening, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to join PSAC members across the Prairie Region to talk about where we are in bargaining with Treasury Board. While the system connects with the nearly 10,000 members we're dialing for this telephone town hall, I want to let those on the phone know about some upcoming events in the Prairies. On the second Wednesday of every month, we host a webinar on a different topic with guest speakers who are experts in the field. For more information on topics and to register for an upcoming webinar, visit prairies.psac.com. We are also scheduling another round of multi-local meetings across the Prairies in April and May. Nearly 400 members attended the last round in the spring of 2014, with 20 different meetings held in 9 different locations. You can check the website for more information or contact your local PSAC regional office. All this information was included in the recent mail-out we did to all Prairies members, including information about this town hall. So I hope you received that and enjoyed that newsletter. Now let's get to it. Tonight we have several guests with us to talk about what's been happening at the bargaining table with Treasury Board and to answer your questions. Tonight we're joined by PSAC's National President, Robyn Benson, and Prairie's Regional Executive Vice President, Marianne Hladun. We also have PSAC negotiator Gail Lem on hand to help answer any questions you may have. Now, let me introduce our first guest speaker, PSAC President Robyn Benson.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey. Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here with you tonight. And I actually am here in the Prairies because I am home in Winnipeg. So I'm doing this call out of the regional office. It's very exciting. This is, I think it's the last of a series of telephone town halls for me, where the members have been very engaged in talking about mobilization and negotiations. On this telephone town hall, you'll hear some more specific bargaining updates from Marianne and Gail as well. But I want to just take a minute to say how proud I am of the work that's being done by our Treasury Board bargaining teams. They've been doing a phenomenal job working on your behalf because, as all of you know, it's not an easy job to be part of a negotiating team because the employer that we're negotiating with, Treasury Board, can be sometimes very difficult. I also want to remind you that we're committed to protecting our benefits, and that, brothers and sisters, includes our sick leave. So, brothers and sisters, if we're going to be successful in this round of negotiations, I have to tell you that it's absolutely critical for all of us to support our negotiating teams. We need to show the government that we're serious about our sick leave and we're serious about the other bargaining proposals that are at the table. And this means that we need a mobilized membership like never before. And I know that many of you have already been taking part of the activities to support the teams and to support your demands. And I want to thank you for this. But we need to expand our activities to show Treasury Board just how very serious we are in this round of negotiations.
Thanks, Robyn, and we're happy to have you back with us in the Prairies. Our next guest speaker is Prairie's Regional Executive Vice President, Marianne Hladun. Marianne, what can you tell us about Treasury Board bargaining so far?
Well, so for those who've been following bargaining updates on the PSAC national website, you'll know that we've been in negotiations with Treasury Board for all 5 groups since last July. We've been meeting regularly every 2 months for a week at a time, and while that may seem like progress is slow, we've been really successful in putting our issues on the table, and we've made extremely strong arguments for the changes we've proposed. The government, and Tony Clement in particular, has been very focused on making sick leave the main issue in this round of bargaining. Sick leave is a big issue. It's an important benefit that our members depend on. Just this last week, I was in Lethbridge talking to several members who are currently undergoing cancer treatments. These members said their sick leave has been vital during this difficult time. And for one member, during an initial medical appointment after her diagnosis, the doctor outright said to her, "I hope that you have sick leave because you're going to need it." And sure enough, she's already used a large chunk of her sick leave bank and continues to use it for ongoing treatments. These are the kinds of scenarios where sick leave is absolutely critical. It's an insurance plan that allows us to focus on getting better and returning to work healthy. Rather than attacking our sick leave, these are the things the employer could be doing to make our workplaces healthier. For example, we want action on mental health concerns. According to the Mental Health Commission of Canada, about 1 in 5 Canadians will experience a mental health problem this year, and many of these problems relate in some way to the workplace. We want union and management to work together to identify what can be psychologically harmful in the workplace. We also want joint action to implement practices that support and promote good mental health. We've also tabled proposals that would offset the negative changes made to health and safety protection by the 2013 Budget Bill C4. Childcare is another important issue for many of our members, and we have a demand that responds to our members' needs and the growing shortage of quality, regulated, and accessible childcare spaces across the country. We've also put forward about 30 proposed improvements to the Workforce Adjustment Appendix, which governs how staff reductions are made in the public service. We're proposing a much more transparent process and much more consultation on how to minimize involuntary departures. We're also proposing that seniority be used if reductions in the public service can't be achieved through voluntary departures to ensure that our members won't be forced to compete against each other for their own jobs. These are just some of the issues we've been talking about so far at the bargaining table.
Thanks, Marianne. There are certainly a lot of important issues being discussed this round. And Marianne, I do want to go back to you for a minute to talk a bit more about the actions that members have been organizing in their locals throughout the Prairies and across Canada every month on the 19th. We have a big national event coming up this Thursday on March 19th. Can you tell us a bit more about that and the movement in general?
Absolutely. Many of you have already been engaged in showing your support at the workplace for your bargaining teams. And for that, on behalf of the bargaining teams, I want to say thank you for that support. As negotiations continue, it's going to be more critical than ever for all of our members to stand together and to keep pressure on the employer. So after officially launching the initiative in the Prairies on November 19th, it's quickly grown with more locals joining this movement and participating in actions every month. Some of the more popular actions have been photo ops with members wearing face masks, holding PSAC signs and posters. You know, we've had CEIU members in Edmonton, USGE members in Winnipeg, holding rallies to show support for bargaining teams. GSU members in Winnipeg and USGE members in Innisfail had information tickets. CIU members in Coots wore red bargaining armbands and shared hot chocolate. Agriculture members in Lethbridge distributed health products such as tissues and cough candies to members in the workplace and covered them with PSAC sick leave stickers. And also in January, they tweeted out 19 easy-to-do union and politically themed New Year's resolutions using the hashtag 19 New Year's resolutions. That's just a few of the things that have been going on throughout the region. And we know that every local is different, and we encourage each of you to organize whatever activity may work specifically for your local. So I'm asking every one of you to be a part of the activities on March 19th and going forward on the 19th of every month. If your local is already planning their activity, be a part of it. If there aren't any plans in the works, help organize one at your workplace. Get together with other locals, with other unions in your workplace in a joint effort. Talk to your coworkers and encourage them to participate. Also, if you haven't already done so, you can sign up for email updates on our website at prairies.psac.com. And be sure to share information about bargaining developments with your coworkers. 2015 is going to be an important year. We'll continue negotiating our new agreements, but bargaining will get tougher. We'll also have the opportunity to elect our employer. The choices we make in the next election will have a crucial impact on this and future negotiations. So once again, thank you for your ongoing support.
Thanks, Marianne. Well, now we'll get to some questions from members on the call. Right now we have Renew from Winnipeg on the line with a question.
Oh, hi. Yes, I would like to know, are you negotiating in this round about pay increments?
Okay, Renew, we have, essentially three broad goals in this round of bargaining. One is to protect public services. Two is to work toward having more healthy workplaces. And three is to negotiate a decent wage increase for our members at Treasury Board. There is a kind of a protocol in collective bargaining, if you like, because typically when you start talking to an employer about money, they focus on that and can't talk about anything else. So typically in the early stages of bargaining, and we're still in the early stages, we've only had 4 actual sessions at the bargaining table. They've been 4 sessions of 3 days each. And at this point, we are still talking about non-economic issues, and we have not yet tabled a wage proposal. And in fact, all of the teams, so we have PSAC has 5 bargaining teams at the table. We're all talking about, what the wage proposal would be, and we're assembling our rationale. For example, comparative wages in the private sector, the rate of inflation, all of the things that we look at to arrive at an appropriate wage proposal. So we are doing that, but we're not at a point yet at the table where we're going to actually talk about money. I want to add something because I don't know if you know about this, but Treasury Board did something highly unusual when we exchanged proposals last July. So if you just keep in mind for a moment everything I just said about how neither party usually makes a wage proposal at the beginning of the process, it's also very common that the union makes the wage proposal first. So because management never wants to offer more than the union might accept, right? So it's not a hard and fast rule, but it's just that the normal way the process works is we talk about economic items later in the process when we've basically finished all of our non-monetary items, and it's typical that the union makes the first wage proposal. So I don't know if members are aware, but Treasury Board actually made a wage proposal in its opening package in July, and that proposal was 0.5% a year in each year of a 4-year agreement. So 0.5, 0.5, 0.5, and 0.5. And that, of course, is an insult. It has no relationship to actual inflation or consumer price index, or it's an insult. Having said that, we have not responded to that wage proposal yet because we are still working on the non-economic part of our package.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Gail. So now I want to talk about the results of our poll for a minute. I asked you, what have you been doing up to now to support these negotiations and your bargaining team? 23% said they've signed up for email updates. 24% said they've done more than one of these things, worn a sticker, signed up for emails, taken part in an activity. But the interesting thing I want to talk about now is that 36% said they've done none of these things. But the fact that you're all on the call today would suggest that you are interested in learning more and getting more involved. So, Robyn, I want to bring you into this for a second. How can the members on the call right now who maybe haven't done anything yet to participate in bargaining activities or support their bargaining team get involved and show their support?
Well, Jeffrey, that's it's actually one of the easiest things that they can do is to wear the stickers that we have. I mean, I understand, where folks haven't necessarily done that yet, and, they might not know where to get the stickers, or, they might not have had their local executive do a plant gate of any of the information. But if you, certainly if you want to know what's taking place within collective bargaining, our website has all of that kind of information. The 19th, for sure, there will be activities. If your local executive hasn't started to plan any activities yet, please chat with them. Tell them that you are on this telephone town hall and that you're quite prepared to work with them to help them to indeed do some activities that are very visual, so that the employer will let Treasury Board know that we are serious about negotiations.
Before I move on, Marianne, I want to pull you into the dialogue for a minute. Robyn had mentioned wearing stickers in the workplace, but some things sometimes we hear from members, how does that make a difference? How does it help for me to be wearing a sticker? What would you say to members who ask that?
Well, I would say to members that I've been a member of the bargaining team. And, sometimes when you're sitting at the bargaining table, you seem so far removed from the members. And, in this day and age with smartphones and technology and email, getting a picture of a workplace saying, we support you and we stand behind you, having the negotiator receive messages that they share with the team members. I mean, it really gives the support to the team for them to sit across the table from the employer and say that, no, our members are not prepared to accept concessions. The other thing is that every employer is required, especially by this government, to report on activities in the workplace. So by wearing your red armband, your wristband, or, putting a flyer up or doing a plant gate, all of those things are put forward. And what that does is that shows Treasury Board that the members stand behind their bargaining team. So it's not just 7 or 9 members sitting at a table in Ottawa. It's tens of thousands of members who stand behind their team. So it's absolutely critical. Those little things can really make the difference, not just for the team, but in your workplace as well.
All right. Well, we'll move on to some more questions now. So right now I want to go to a question from David in Winnipeg. And he has a question about sick leave, I believe.
Hi there. I was just wondering about the, the comment that was made from an earlier speaker who was talking about a healthy workplace. I guess I'm just thinking in terms of if sick leave is on the table, I think we should be thinking about what we can be doing to prevent ourselves from ever having to use it. And I don't know if there's enough in the workplace that's really working to the benefit of the employee to stay healthy, whether it's exercise or gym facilities, better extended healthcare options, so that when we do feel like there's something that needs to be addressed, that we've got enough insurance available to cover some of our alternative therapies to keep ourselves healthy. So I'm just wondering if any of that is being discussed or considered in terms of how we could be a little more proactive to stay healthier as employees, because a healthier employee is a more productive employee.
Let's speak about mental health in the workplace. We've put forward a proposal at the table speaking to mental health, so that this employer will look at the mental health standards, adopt them, do the work that needs to be done around mental health for indeed just that case, to have a healthier workplace. What you have right now is sick leave benefits contained within the collective agreement. They've been there for over 40 years, and we will ensure that they stay within this collective agreement. What Mr. Clement has gone on record as saying is that our members, his employees, take more sick leave than the private sector. They take more actually than what they're actually given per year. Mr. Clement has said that we use on average 18 days a year. I tried to correct him because I come from tax, and so I certainly know that if you only earned 15, you can only take maximum 15, let alone 18. Suffice it to say, the Parliamentary Budget Officer did a report indicating that Mr. Clement was incorrect in what his assumptions were about how much sick leave we use. Then he went ahead and said that it cost way too much money, it was a burden to taxpayers. Of course, we all know that sick leave, that's contained within our collective agreement, is in fact an insurance policy, and we use it when we absolutely need to. And of course, if we had a healthier workplace, we wouldn't have to use as much. Once again, the Parliamentary Budget Officer did a report that indicated Mr. Clement was incorrect with respect to how much it costs the taxpayers for our sick leave. It's been proven time and again when I asked the press what he was next going to say about sick leave, it was maybe because we were perhaps not as productive as what he would like us to be. And then I had suggested that if perhaps he hadn't done DRAP, we would be far more productive, because there would be the right number of individuals proudly serving Canadians instead of the downsizing that this government has done, and us having to do more with less. So all of that added up, of course, to wanting us to have healthier workplaces. The employer's own survey that they just got the results for indicate that 1 in 5, and I'm going to repeat it, 1 in 5 individuals, and it's just not PSAC members, it's all employees of the federal public service deal with harassment on a daily basis. They feel harassed in the workplace and usually from their superiors. So what you have is a workplace that's crying out for help. And so from our perspective, on March 19th, we're going to be out together, all of the unions, working towards healthy workplaces, because together that's how we're going to be able to accomplish that. But I ask you once again to visibly show support to your negotiating teams, because we believe that healthy workplaces are more productive. We believe that the proposals we have with respect to public services and improving public services are really important. We believe that Treasury Board, the government themselves, should adopt the national standard for psychological health and safety in the workplace. So there's a number of issues that need to be worked through, and certainly for us, sick leave is not a concession. We're not giving it away. We believe that it should stay within our collective agreement, and if there is something that is wrong with it, then let us negotiate improvements to it, if in fact the employer can prove that there is anything untoward with the sick leave that we currently have.
All right, we'll squeeze one more question in before we go to the next poll. We have a question from Ricardo in Edmonton.
Yes, I have been on what I would call long-term disability since August of last year. I'm not able to attend the event in Edmonton, but is there anything that I and maybe other people who are in a similar situation are able to do in order to show that we support the union and your efforts in the negotiations with the employer?
One thing that I think is going to be critical, and it's around this round of bargaining, but it's also leading up to the federal election this fall. And, I spoke earlier about the fact that as federal public service workers, we have an opportunity to basically elect our employer. One of the most important things you can do is talk to people. You can talk to your friends, you can talk to your neighbors, you can talk to coworkers if you're still in contact with them, and let them know that what's being said in the media, what's been said in the House of Commons about this abuse of sick leave and how the government has to bring it under control, to let them know that that's not reality. We have information from the Parliamentary Budget Officer, from a variety of sources, saying that's not the case. And, we tend to shy away from those discussions, but I think, we need to be proud of the work that we do as public service workers, and we need to let people know that this government isn't respecting us when they have, when they go into the public media and say those things. So everyone has a role to play. If the feeling strikes you, call your member of parliament and ask them what they think of it. They're elected to represent you. So I think the most important thing you can do is speak up and let people know that what this government and Treasury Board is painting our members at is not reality.
So moving along to the next question, let's go to Eunice in Winnipeg.
Hi, I'm just wondering, I know sick leave is a very high priority for the negotiation tables. I'm wondering, I know wage hasn't been really discussed. What are the other negotiations, or what's on the table for PSAC? What are they fighting for us as members? What's on the table is what I'm asking. Thanks.
I don't know what bargaining unit that you belong to, so I'm the PA negotiator, and of course we have negotiators for the other 4 tables. We have a number of common issues that affect everyone, and then each particular bargaining unit, of course, has a lot of its own issues. Robyn talked about some of the healthy workplace proposals that we have been putting forward. There are quite a lot of them, aside from some of the ones she's mentioned. We have a proposal to, kind of for a joint study to move forward on examining what the issues are for child care in the workplace. I'm talking about a suite of healthy workplace proposals. We've got proposals for improved no discrimination language and improved anti-harassment language. Our collective agreements do not have language on personal harassment and abuse of authority that we are negotiating in a lot of other places. Speaking from the perspective of the PA table, although I certainly know firsthand that this is an equal concern at the TC and SV tables, at the PA table, we are pushing very hard to step up the process of classification reform. You are probably all aware that your classification standards have not been revisited since they were introduced in 1964, and that is one of the reasons why many people find that they're not paid appropriately for the work that they actually do. But there are scores of proposals at every table. So what I would suggest that you do is visit the PSAC national website because we have posted there all of the proposals from all of our tables as well as the employer's proposals, so you would be able to review them at your leisure.
We'll go to another question now from Catherine in Vegreville.
Good evening. The engagement of the 19th events has been a great opportunity for all members to show solidarity and support for our bargaining team. For the past several years, PSAC has asked members to boycott the employer-driven National Public Service Week each June. Are there any plans at this time from PSAC to escalate this nationwide boycott request? And if so, what are they?
We have, again, determined that we would boycott Public Service Week. I mean, we really can't see having a piece of cake that the employer gives us when, in fact, they're so disrespectful with respect to our negotiations, with respect to us having to do more with less, looking at the public service survey and, what has increased in terms of harassment within the workplace, folks feeling undervalued. The list just goes on in terms of this particular government. Certainly I'm 35 years with the CRA and have been through many public service weeks, and quite frankly, this is the worst government in my opinion with respect to their treatment of their employees. And so while I understand that it can be difficult for our members because they're first-line supervisors or the managers that they're actually in the workplace with, they may get along really well with them, but if we don't boycott Public Service Week and we don't show this employer that we're fed up with them, then I'm really not sure what it is that we can do. It will be another way to support our negotiating team, and I would hope that for Public Service Week we'll have a special sticker or we'll have some events that will be planned with the regional executive vice presidents and their respective locals, because certainly in June that'll be a time to really put forward to this employer that enough is enough, that they should come to the table prepared to negotiate meaningful improvements to our collective agreement and not look at concessions.
Last year we've been doing this boycott for several years now, and it wasn't something that was taken lightly. It was a decision of the National Board of Directors, so it included all of the components. And, when you have a Minister of Treasury Board standing up in the House of Commons thanking public servants during Public Service Week, and the next week, sometimes the same week, saying they're all abusing sick leave, the reality is that, it's not credible to begin with. I know that a lot of times, as Robyn said, it's not your managers, it's not your supervisors, this is nothing personal. Sometimes, they really truly do want to show appreciation, but the reality is all of these things are reported. So when 80% of the workplace shows up to a Public Service Week event sponsored by the employer, they report that up, and Treasury Board and the minister will stand up in front of the media and say that members don't support their union. And that's not the case. We had some really creative ideas. There was barbecues, there was picnics. It was a GSU local in Edmonton came up with a great slogan. Today they give you ice cream, tomorrow they take your sick leave. And that's really what it comes down to, that a burger, a hot dog, a thing of ice cream just doesn't make up for what you stand to lose in this round of bargaining. So, locals are asked to be creative. There's all kinds of things you can do, get together with other locals, but the boycott is absolutely continuing. And, we're hoping to see some great ideas and for locals to be creative this year.
Okay, so we'll move on to another question here from a member in Beaumont. Irene, what's your question tonight?
Hi, Robyn and Marianne and Gail. My question, I guess, it's kind of, I won't say complicated, but what do you see happening, being that the election is forthcoming, possibly in October, how things will have to progress in the next few months? Like, will there be a call out to start doing strike action or anything? I realize we're mobilizing, but anything, can you elaborate on that?
Okay, so let's talk about negotiations and talk about the timelines that we're in. We have a number of demands at the table that we need to work our way through, and as Gail had said earlier, we're nowhere near the money at this point in time, and this employer has come, as per usual, with concessions. So we're not going to rush this, brothers and sisters. We're going to do what needs to be done because our job as a union is to negotiate fair, equitable, collective agreements. So we're going to move this forward as we always would. But this is not the first time that we would be in negotiations when there's been an election, and I'm assuming that it won't be the last time. But when we're going to talk about elections, let's talk about electing your employer, because that's exactly what's happening. So I'm not sure if all of you on the call have received the latest Our Union Voice. I thought it was really appropriate for this time of year and for what will either happen perhaps in June, as early as June is what we hear in sort of the scuttlebutt, or as late as October of this year, the federal election. In fact, that's the latest that they can hold out until is October 19th, 2015. So here we are with Our Union Voice, and of course I've put a letter in it to the membership, and I'm asking you to please vote because I think it's really, really important. If you look at the statistics, there's X amount of a percentage of Canadians that don't vote. So if you take that backwards into our union, then that same percentage equates to our union membership, and our union members don't vote. And so it's really important that you exercise your democratic right and actually get out and vote on election day. We have on the back of Our Union Voice what we're calling 5 easy things that you can do to help elect an MP who supports public services, because this is about the public services that we proudly do for Canadians that unfortunately this government hasn't taken as seriously as what we have. So we ask our members to get the facts. We ask them to find out about their local candidates and what they stand for. Spread the word, as Marianne had just said. Talk to your friends and your coworkers. Spread the information about not only the election, but about the work that you do and how difficult it has become to, in fact, serve Canadians the way you used to. You can also join us on Facebook, Twitter. Sign up for information coming from PSACunion.ca. And as I said, vote on election day. We have a number of issues that we think are really important for our members to talk to the candidates about, child care being one of them, the job cuts. There's 26,000 jobs were cut in the federal public service, with plans, we believe, to cut another 9,000. So in total, that's going to mean 35,000 full-time jobs have been permanently eliminated from the economy. And that, think about how that equates to the services that you try to provide. Think about how that equates to a veteran who's trying to get services and now their local office has been closed. Employment insurance, the legislative changes that have taken place, certainly EI, those workers that can actually qualify for EI, it's the lowest number in 40 years. Healthcare, need I say more about our healthcare system, human rights, the environment, and as I said, the veterans. I think that the closing of the 9 offices is certainly so disrespectful to those individuals who serve their country. And retirement security, because I will say, sisters and brothers, not to fearmonger, but, today they come for the sick leave is tomorrow when they come for the pension, because they have looked at a target benefit pension plan, which is very different than what we have right now. We intend to keep our pension plan. We intend to keep our sick leave, and we will only do so with the strength of our membership. So if all of our members stand up to be counted, that's how we will achieve fair and equitable collective agreements. And if every one of our members goes out to vote, that's how we will get an employer that is worker-friendly, that cares about Canadians, because this government has certainly shown that they do not. When we talk about an increase to the Canada Pension Plan, which is what the Canadian Labour Congress, one of their campaigns has been about, we had all of the provinces on board, and it was the federal government that said no. And all we wanted to do was pay more into the CPP and QPP so that individuals who retire can do so with dignity and respect. This is a government who the Prime Minister went to another country and announced that the eligibility for old age security would go from age 65 to 67. It was a direct hit on retirement security for the next generation. And I will remind each and every one of us on the call that this isn't just about us here today. It's about our tomorrows. It's about our children and our children's children. So, brothers and sisters, there's a lot of work that we need to do around the negotiations, the support for our negotiating team, and certainly the information that we need to share with our friends, families, and our neighbors, and anyone that we can possibly talk to about what this government has done and how we need to elect an employer that cares about us.
Now, before we go on to the next question, I want to backtrack to poll question 2, where I asked you about your participation in March 19th. So 27% of people said that they will participate in an activity on March 19th, but 35% said that this is the first time they're hearing of the ongoing 19th activities. So, Marianne, I want to just talk to you, get you in on this conversation for a minute, and can you tell us a bit more about the 19th and sort of why that's important and how people who may have never heard of this movement can get involved?
Absolutely, Jeffrey. So activities around the 19th are geared towards, the federal election fixed date is October 19th. And, it started out east and it's grown into a national movement about reminding this government every month that PSAC members are ready to stand behind our bargaining teams and will be ready come the next election. So, there's been a variety of activities. It really depends on who you have in your local. Are people in the workplace or on the road or spread around all over the place? So, locals are being creative. It's interesting to me to see that we have some members who weren't aware of that. And so what I would say is at the end of the call, there's an opportunity to provide some feedback, and I really would like to get some feedback on how we can communicate some of this information. So right now, members can sign up for an electronic newsletter on the Prairies website, and it comes out, usually about once a month. And it has information on activities, newspaper articles, upcoming education, committee meetings. You can go to the Prairies website, and we always have information posted on there. We sent some posters out to locals about the purpose of the 19th, and some suggestions for what they can do on the 19th. So, I would encourage you, if you are not a member of your local executive, to speak to your local executive and, make sure that everyone's aware of it. You can call the regional office and talk to the regional rep to get some ideas. But really, it's about going out and, talking to some of your coworkers. I think it's critically important. And as we're building more and more support on the 19th, the government and the employer is absolutely, definitely seeing this. So if you have any suggestions on how we can communicate, sometimes we are, based on the computer. We tend to use technology. So if you have other ideas, we absolutely want to hear them, and please leave them at the end of the call.
So we'll get to a couple more questions now. We have one from Linda in Big River. Linda, what's your question?
I was just wondering, and I know it's not something that they can give definite things. I'm just looking to see if they had a timeline on when negotiations might be completed and the agreement ratified. I'm looking at retiring within the next 6 months, and I have been told that I should get back pay depending on when it's ratified. But I just was concerned that if I was retired, that I might not get the wage benefit that comes out in the new agreement.
Okay, sure. So Marianne mentioned earlier on the call, we are meeting with Treasury Board every 2 months for a week at a time. But Gail, can you touch on this a bit more, and do we have any idea sort of how long this could go?
Unfortunately, Linda, we don't. So we're next meeting with Treasury Board the week of March 23rd. Then the week of May, I think it's the week of May 12th, and then the week of June 15th. And we don't have other dates scheduled after that. We are trying to set other dates. It's really hard to predict when we'll actually get to a deal. But we still have quite a few things on the table to discuss.
The one thing with this round of bargaining is, we've got the federal election coming this fall. I think pretty much everyone believes that if there is a change in government, that the mandate at the table would hopefully change. I mean, that can't be guaranteed. At the end of the day, this whole process is about getting a good collective agreement for our members. And, if Treasury Board came to the table in May with no concessions and a decent wage package, it would come out to the members. This is not about anything to do with politics, about stalling it until then. The reality is that the teams are strong, that they're not going to accept concessions to sick leave or anything else. And we will stay at the table as long as we're productively negotiating, because our teams understand the integrity of the collective bargaining process. And so they're going to stay there, and they're going to have those discussions. And the other thing to remember is that once the writ is dropped for the election, all negotiations have to stop. So depending on when that happens, if there was anything scheduled, we're not allowed to negotiate during that period. So just thought I would add that information.
So I think we have time for one more question, so we'll go to Pamela in Winnipeg.
Good evening. Is PSAC communicating with the other components on a prairie or national level? And what are they bargaining or negotiating with the Treasury Board?
Yes, we are actually having many discussions. So there are 17 unions other than ourselves that are at the National Joint Council. So that's all of the unions that have members working for Treasury Board. We have and will continue to have meetings every 6 to 8 weeks. We exchange information with respect to the bargaining that's taking place. This is the first time that this has ever happened in the history of the National Joint Council, but we feel very strongly that we need to be in this all together. Folks will recall the severance in the last round of negotiations, and what we determined for this round of negotiations is that we didn't want this ever to happen again. We didn't want to lose sick leave. We don't want them next to come to take our pensions, and so we decided that we would collectively stand up to fight this government and to ensure that our members have no concessions at the table. So in order to achieve that, not only have all of the unions been under discussion, and that's Unifor, CAPE, PIPS, and others, we've also signed a solidarity pact. And by that I mean all of us penned our signature to a document that said we would have no concessions at the table and that we would ensure that we had a meaningful round of negotiations. So we talk to each other quite regularly, and as a matter of fact, this March 19th will not just be PSAC members and all of our components, but it will be all of the other unions as well. Wherever you are across this country, there will be other unions with you. And in some areas, as a matter of fact, it won't just necessarily be the National Joint Council unions or the unions with members in Treasury Board proper. It will be other unions, such as perhaps MGEU, CUPE, and others that will come out because they'll be in solidarity with us. So across the country, depending on how the event is unfolding, will depend if there is public sector and private sector unions with us. But for sure, there will be unions from the National Joint Council because of our Solidarity Pact, because we are working together for healthy workplaces.
Before we wrap up, I want to go back to you, Robyn, now, for any last remarks for our members tonight.
Thank you, Jeffrey. I love to get the last word. For those of you who are in Winnipeg, and Marianne did say that there is a rally here in Winnipeg, I am actually home. I look forward to being with you. On the 19th, I'll be out there. I'll be walking with you, and feel free at any time to tell me what it is that you think or you want or you need, because I'm certainly interested in knowing. As well, I want to thank everyone who came out to be on the call. I think the telephone town halls are an excellent way to reach our membership, to have that ongoing dialogue with them. I'm sorry that there's not an opportunity to answer more questions, because there certainly were some great questions and there were more folks lined up to ask questions. I want to thank you also for taking the time to find out about negotiations and where we are in negotiations. And if there's more information, Jeffrey will explain at the end of the call what you can do. But feel free to check our website for all of the updates that we have and sign up for the email update. Brothers and sisters, I'll just end with, if there was ever a time to fight back in a round of collective bargaining, this is the time. This is the time to stand up and say no to clawbacks. This is the time to stand up and be behind your negotiating team and to tell your team that you're with them every step of the way, because what they negotiate for you is highly important, not just for yourselves, but for generations to come. And so I think that we have work to do, brothers and sisters, but I'm so proud of the work that you've already done and the work that I know that you will continue to do. So those of you who are here in Winnipeg and going to be out on the 19th, I look forward to hanging around with you.
Thanks, Robyn, and I hate to burst your bubble, but it'll actually be Marianne getting the last word on tonight's call. But before you
Jeffrey.
say your final... So, Marianne?
Okay, so it's not often I get the last word when Sister Benson is on the line, but I'll take the opportunity. I want to say thank you to Gail for being on the call. Thank you to Robyn for being on the call. For all the members that are on the line, everything is on the line. And we really need your help to put a message to the employer on March 19th. This is not just about the 5 Treasury Board tables. This is about the labor movement saying to this government, we're not going to allow concessions at that table, because once it happens there, it goes everywhere. We need to stand strong. This is the time where we need to stand together, and we need to show this employer that no matter what they put on the table, we're going to stay strong to the end. The leadership is committed to making sure you get a good collective agreement, and your bargaining teams are committed. So support your bargaining teams in whatever way you can. And thank you for participating on the call this evening.